A fourth consecutive night of violence erupted in Ferguson last night.
We just said hands up, don't shoot.
You must disperse immediately. This is no longer a peaceful protest when you try to injure people.
Ferguson police just yesterday released a statement asking protesters to assemble only during daylight hours.
Hands up, don't shoot.
But even those protests have been met by a heavily armed police presence.
Return to your vehicles. Return to your homes.
We were out there peacefully demonstrating, and we thought that as long as we're peaceful, there's no violence, everything's okay. And then the next thing I know, there's tear gas.
What is happening in Ferguson, Missouri once again brings to the fore a number of very serious and complex issues. The fact this country is more racially splintered than at any time in recent history, the growing discontent between African Americans and law enforcement, and a rush to judgment that is often fed by the media. Let's dig into these a whole lot more. Welcome back to MidPoint. A good friend, a member of our Newsmax Masters, president of McKee Communications, Clarence McKee joins us here in the studio. Clarence, always a pleasure to see you,
Good to be here and good to be back.
How tough is it to sit and watch that? Because as we grow as a nation, we hope that we have come past a lot of this. But to see what's happening not only at night, but in daytime as well, and fully armed cops out there watching the streets.
I tell you, well, first of all, rioting and violence doesn't help anybody. It never works. In the 60s, when I went through that with in a lot of cities, those communities were devastated for months, years afterwards. Now, all these young thugs who are breaking windows and looting, who's going to get their food for the kids? The gas stations are destroyed, so that's the problem with that. On the other side of this, you've got a long, simmering frustration throughout the country between law enforcement and young black kids. It's like driving while black. You had a situation in New York a few weeks ago, last month, a person was choked to death. What is really needed, and what the President and the Attorney General should do, is have some kind of a dialogue or White House conference to bring law enforcement together with black unity, black leaders, and see how do we take care of this.
This is not something new. This has been going on for a long time. So when we talk about the president, any president for that matter, but specifically this one, bringing people together and trying to create some sort of a solution here, it amazes people that we're 6 years into this administration and we haven't seen this.
This president in 6 years, I think it was only about 3 or 4 weeks ago or a month ago, he created a committee or set up a program for minority youth. Well, you would think that this president, being black and from Chicago, murder capital of the world, by the way, would have had a deeper interest in the problem of young black males, and he has no urban strategy. Now, he's sending the Attorney General and the FBI and the state's U.S. Attorney to Ferguson. Well, he did that within 3 days. He still hasn't done that with Benghazi or the IRS, you know. So the tragedy here is the long simmering problem. Take a look at Ferguson, 20,000 people, 68% black. Police force, 55 for 50, only 3 blacks. So there's something going on in that city. If you take a look at the pictures on television, it's like Afghanistan. They have SWAT armored cars. Quite a few from what I saw, for a little town of 60,000. So somehow there has to be a dialogue that hasn't been going on, because this just didn't happen overnight.
But isn't it fair to say, though, and I've mentioned this with a lot of law enforcement people, law enforcement sometimes in this country faces just a ridiculously impossible task, because the criminals are sometimes armed better than they are. They come in with automatic weapons. Don't the police need to be better armed? Haven't we come to this place where they almost need to be almost militarized, as tough as that is to say, in order to protect them and protect the citizenry?
To a point, but I was just looking at what I saw. Given those crowds, they were really relatively peaceful. So you don't need the barking dogs. It was almost intimidating. As the lady said, they were peacefully demonstrating. And so you've got a police force there. I'm not going to criticize them, but they're arresting journalists. Something's not right there in Ferguson. I don't know what the problem is. So then you bring in Al Sharpton, who couldn't go to Chicago. I think over the 4th of July weekend, you had 45 to 62 people injured, 14 killed. There were no riots then. And what disturbs me so much, Ed, is it seems that a black life has more value if it's taken by a white cop or a white person than it is if it's taken by another black. Hundreds of blacks killed in Chicago. Have you had any riots? No. Did Sharpton go there? No. So it's a lot of problems there as well.
You mentioned Al Sharpton, and I want everybody to hear we have a soundbite from Al Sharpton, because, of course, whenever there's trouble, Al Sharpton gets on the first plane and winds up in places like this. Here is Al Sharpton in Ferguson, Missouri.
To become violent
in Michael Brown's name is to betray the gentle giant that he was. Don't be so angry. Don't be so angry that you distort the image of who his mother and father told us he was.
But isn't it always just part of the political rhetoric for so many people? They want to be right on the ground of this. Al Sharpton, with words of peace at that point, that's sort of rare for him because he is usually the one in there stoking the fires as hard as he can.
Well, a few weeks ago, he was in New York City trying to tell the mayor and the police chief how they run the city there, which the mayor got very upset about. But Reverend Al will be leaving in a few hours, a few days, to go back to MSNBC and wait for the next riot somewhere. But the people who are local, I understand a lot of the black local leaders didn't necessarily want him in there. He's always, of course, invited by the family, as he was in the Trayvon Martin case. Mm-hmm. But you have one group of people protesting violently, another group peacefully. So when he leaves town, maybe the mayor and the police chief can get together with the NAACP, who's called for calm, and get something done. But Sharpton just brings a lot of press, and he leaves.
I got about 30, 40 seconds left here. Is it not also part of the solution here? The people themselves. This is a stunningly emotional time. This kid maybe was gunned down on it. We don't know all the facts right here, but the people themselves have to take control in their own community, and they have to bring some calm there. They have to bring themselves down.
And the city fathers or godfathers have to start listening to what the NAACP and other people are telling them. I'm sure over the last few years, high unemployment rate, nothing has been done. Police brutality, if it's been going on. Somebody has not been talking. Maybe this will bring an end to some of these barriers between the people, and this kid's life will get something brought back from it.
I got about 20 seconds here. Does anybody really have a good urban strategy right now, or is everybody still trying to put one together?
They're all trying to put it together. There's no urban strategy until it breaks out in a riot. Then we say, what are we going to do? We'll buy SWAT teams and tanks, but no jobs.
It's a matter of putting together that strategy,
Priorities.
which a lot of people need. Priorities, thank you, which,
exactly.
Again, a lot of governments don't seem to do they?
Or political parties either.
No, they don't. It's always a
pleasure to have you,
Clarence. Thank you so much for coming by here today. Coming up next after the break, Steve Malzberg is coming up right after us. Of course, the Steve Malzberg Show. He'll give you an idea what he's got. And also, On Point. It's our chance to review what's happened here today. You don't want to miss it. It's on MidPoint, where every day we question everything. Stay with us.